Something to say, we read it because we want to be heard, and we publish because we want to share. So I'm going to introduce now Tom Goodell, and he's going to fill you in on this great evening.
Thank you, Laverne, and thanks everybody for coming out this afternoon. I'm Tom Goodell, General Manager of 91.3 WUKY, and we are proud to be a co-sponsor, a co-presenter of this series of events. Say it loud, black and proud this time. This is our third reading in this particular event. And I want to thank our sponsors for helping make this event possible. We have LFUCG, the Kentucky Arts Council, Lex Arts, South Arts, Foundation 47, and Southland Printing. Before we get started with the readings, I just wanted to kind of reflect on something that I've been going over in my mind for the past few months. My wife's son gave us for Christmas this wonderful poster of 100 essential movies. And so we've been working our way through the list. And I'm kind of a TCM guy, so a lot of these are popular films that you have all seen that I've never watched. And so it got me thinking about cinema for the past few years. And at the same time, I've been reading this book by Robin DiAngelo that's called What Does It Mean to Be White? And I recommend this book to you. She talks about movies, and she says the 20 highest grossing films of all time worldwide were every one of them directed by white men. These men are society's cultural authors or storytellers. Their imaginations, their desires, their worldviews, and their conceptions of people of color become ours. Consider the implications of this very privileged, homogenous, and racially isolated group essentially telling our culture's stories. These implications aren't problematic because privileged white men are bad people. They are problematic because their worldview is necessarily limited, especially regarding race. Yet it is virtually the only worldview that many of us see, and unavoidably and quite powerfully, it shapes our worldview. Well, the time has come to change that worldview, and we are doing our part today to do that. We have 4 supremely talented black women who are here to guide us, including our host for this evening and this reading, and that is the coordinator of the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative, Claudia Love Mair.
Yes.
Good evening, good people.
Good evening.
How y'all feeling?
Good.
I don't feel that good. I'm going to take some of your joy, though. Thank you for coming out to support Black Writers. Say It Loud gives our Kentucky Black Writer Collaborative members an opportunity to share their work in a way that may not have been available before. We've had people in this series that have never read in front of anybody. So it's a great opportunity to share the talents with the community. Kentucky Black Writers are brilliant writers. We are right up there with the best in the whole world. And I'm so grateful that I can create opportunities to amplify these often hidden voices. So let me start off with the program. I'm going to just read right now the first 2 bios, and then I'm going to kick off the reading. So let me start with wonderful Eugenia Johnson-Smith. Eugenia is an author, coach, inspirational and motivational speaker, and the CEO of Positive Power LLC Training and Development. She empowers her clients to be a positive influence in the home, the community, and the world. She is a freelance writer who writes for Lextropolis magazine, where she received the 110% award for stories. Listen, she deserves a 110% award for everything. She hosts a monthly writing workshop, Writing from Stress to Peace, with the Woodford County Public Library. She enjoys encouraging writers and helping them reach their goals as writers. Her book, Positive Power 31, Devotions to Help Unleash Your Positive Power, is soon to be released. And then there is me. I just finished my 13th book. It is called Morning Pages, Working Through Grief the Right Way. You would think I didn't have to look to tell you what that is, right? I have an MFA from Spalding University, and I am joyfully, humbly the coordinator for the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative. I have a couple of cats. One of them is crazy. All right. So I'm going to read an essay that I wrote some years back. It's called Finding Faith at Sam's Rock. It was a brilliant spring day in Louisville, Kentucky. A few friends and I walked across Cave Hill Cemetery to see the monument known as Jesus is My Swing Set. I'd read about it on Roadside America's website. It looked like my kind of kitsch. The monument, dedicated to Samantha Ann McDonald, a 3-year-old who drowned in her family's pool, features a massive, bronze, laughing Jesus protruding waist up from a stone archway with the words, Sam's Rock, chiseled on the surface. Jesus' hands hold the ropes of the swing that an effigy of a little grinning girl sits on. Roadside America calls the monument the ultimate sculptural expression of Bloody Jesus from the film Dogma. I'm a woman of deep conviction, but the truth is, I find some expressions of faith hilarious. Jesus is My Swing Set brought to mind my beloved Touchdown Jesus, a 62-foot tall, fiberglass and styrofoam monstrosity, once located on the grounds of Monroe, Ohio's Solid Rock Church. His uplifted arms resembled a referee shouting, touchdown! In 2010, lightning struck the statue down, a move that was long overdue. When I stepped onto the cemetery grounds, a vague sense of shame settled over me. Cave Hill Cemetery is no mega church whose members literally had $250,000 to burn on an ugly statue. My feet were on the hallowed grounds of the city of the dead. Cave Hill Cemetery, with its carefully cultivated calm and meticulously manicured lawns, displays an astounding array of remembrances to the dead, ranging from the boring to the breathtaking. But none were more unsettling than the tributes to children. My heavy steps moved cautiously around them. I thought of my own children, grown now, and how I still try hard and sometimes fail to keep them safe. All the parents tried, I thought, my spirit sagging, as I stepped around the most disastrous of outcomes. When I finally spotted Jesus as my swing set, I saw that it was smaller than I thought it would be, an exercise in restraint compared to Touchdown Jesus, and it didn't amuse me at all. Sam's Rock is indeed the focal point, but the Roadside America photo didn't show the two smaller memorial stones, each about 2 feet tall, flanking Jesus and the little girl. A bird bath, complete with bronze birds, perched above a shallow reservoir to the right of the archway. Isaiah 26:9, carved in script, flowed beneath the words, "The Lord is my rock eternal." The lyrics to Jesus Loves Me, every verse, dance across the surface of the stone to the left. Underneath the words is a replica of Sam's handprints, my breath caught at the loopy child scroll of her name, with a smiley face inside of the letter A. But Sam's sculpted face bothered me most. She looked like a tiny 80-year-old woman with helmet hair. It was a grotesque caricature. I wasn't sure if the sculptor did a terrible job, or if it's simply impossible to capture the light that shines in a living girl's eyes, or the roses that stain her dimpled cheeks. How can anyone capture Sam's beaming smile, those tiny chiclet teeth in bronze, or the gentle movement of her tousled bangs? I asked the groundkeeper how much a tribute like that would set a family back. Thousands and thousands of dollars, he said. When I showed the picture of the monument to my best friend Elizabeth, who's buried both her parents, she remarked that the smaller stones could easily run upward of $10,000 each. The Sam's Rock website is a fount of information about the monument. Stories abound, but the McDonald's have the good taste of never revealing how much they paid for it. I felt tacky for wishing I knew. On the site, I learned the girl, Samantha Ann McDonald, was a sweet, devout little angel. She enjoyed saying the McDonald's restaurant's slogan, "I'm loving it," when something pleases her. Pink was her favorite color. A mini geologist, Sam loved rocks and could often be found picking up stones and pebbles that interested her, swirling them away to examine later. She loved to swing and did so with abandon. She rode a tricycle. I also learned that May 2nd, 2006 was an ordinary spring day in the Bluegrass, with mostly cloudy skies and a temperature of pleasant, almost 70 degrees. Sam swung on her swing set that day and later set out, her tiny purse in the crook of her elbow, for a ride on her trike. The McDonald's made every effort to protect their children, Jacob, Becca, and Sam, asserts the website. There were pit fences and locks, alarms and warning lights. None of it kept Sammy, her tricycle and purse with a few rocks inside, from falling into the pool that day. I picture the tricycle and that poor baby floating atop the water. Then chaos, a rush into the pool, Sam hoisted on her daddy's shoulders, his frantic swim to the pool's edge. I see the failed CPR attempt and the fading hope, and the anxious trip to the hospital. As the family left the emergency room after Sammy died, the website says, the car was silent with grief until Jacob said, "Mom, I was sad, and then I remembered Sammy won." To the McDonald's, Sam won the bounty of heaven, where she could play for an eternity with Jesus himself as her swing set. I'm not sure the McDonald's evangelistic message reaches roadside America readers who flock to the site to find bizarre tourist attractions. But standing beneath the protective arm of a wingnut tree, staring at the structure in person, I felt ashamed of my motivation to see it. Despite my burgeoning sympathy, however, the question of guilt nagged. Beneath the frozen smiles of Jesus and Sam, did a darker story of self-indulgence arise? Was the carefully crafted monument some kind of penance? I contacted Debbie McDonald weeks after my cemetery visit to ask her about my suspicions. Every loss of a child I experienced left a black fist of grief in my heart, and God did not take it away. What was her story? Debbie McDonald agrees to speak to me by phone. She's a pleasant, generous woman with a rich, soul-free voice. From our first contact, she tells me she's touched that the monument moved me to write about it. I don't tell her my first impression was wholly unsavory. I ask her how she feels about varying people's responses to the monument. She doesn't seem to care about who doesn't like it. She focuses on the 10,000 or so people she knows Sam's story has touched through the website, speaking engagements, and prayer groups. Debbie also offers an important correction. We didn't name it Jesus is my swing set. Somebody else did. She's seen the Roadside America review. They never contacted me, she says. The week she died, I kept thinking of her on the swing set. I wanted to do that for my daughter, have her on a swing. The rest is kind of built on that. It was a collaboration, she said, between Jeff and Debbie McDonald and their surviving kids, Tom White, the metal sculptor, and Joy Monuments, who did the stonework. The handwriting of Jesus Loves Me lyrics belongs to Debbie's best friend. Debbie also explained the reason behind the additional lyrics to Jesus Loves Me. One verse says, "He will wash my sin away. Let his little children come in." The monument looks like Heaven's Gate, ready to open to swing to let Sammy in. It fit, Debbie says. Do you feel guilty? I probe. I know as a mom, I feel guilty about everything. Again, Debbie's musical laugh. I remember when my son needed glasses, I felt like I passed on my bad genes to him. Then she grows serious. No, I don't feel guilty. Debbie pauses a moment before launching into her story. My husband and I were off that day. Jeff is a doctor. Debbie, a chemist. My mother-in-law had been watching Sam while my husband and I did some gardening. We live on 8.5 acres of property. Mom told Jeff she was going inside and for us to take over. I didn't hear her, but he thought I did. Hours passed. Jeff thinking Debbie was watching Sam, the mother-in-law thinking the pair was sharing her care, Debbie thinking Mom had had her. Her mother-in-law sat inside her suite, only 20 feet from where Sam drowned. She didn't hear a sound from the pool. Drowning is a quiet thing, Debbie says. It's quick, too. It takes no time. Debbie tells me the first day they opened the pool for the season, it was the first day they opened the pool for the season, and the gate was open because they had just filled it. An alarm that not only made a loud noise when anything splashed into the water to quit the pool, and a glaring red light offered a visual warning of danger. I tested that thing over and over with a 5-gallon bucket, but the sensor had broken when the water levels dropped. We hadn't gotten it fixed yet. The perfect storm. I called my mother-in-law's cell phone and asked if she needed a break from watching Sam. When she told me that she didn't have her, I still wasn't concerned. I called my husband. That's when we realized how much time had passed. He ran to the pool. When he saw the tricycle, he said, "Oh my God, Sammy," he screamed. Debbie turns reflective. I felt secure as can be, safe. We lived in a good neighborhood. We had privacy. We were diligent. We think if we can worry enough, they'll be okay, Debbie says, sorrow and resolution in her voice. We had a lot of what ifs, but in the end, it was just a freak accident. It's just a thing. It's life. How long did it take them to achieve this equilibrium? I still can't imagine. My husband has a feeling that it was just her day to die. It could have been a car accident where Sam was the only one who died, or a fall. It could have been anything. We wouldn't have been able to prevent it. He feels strongly about that. I failed miserably at this rationalization. I wondered if they needed to believe that to keep them from falling into a now very familiar abyss of guilt. Sam was only 3 years old. How could it be that it was just her day to die? While I tried to process this, Debbie tells me, the Lord won't let us feel guilty. Some things we just don't understand this side of heaven. There are a lot of reasons why we don't get our answer. My personal allowance of guilt is mountains of it. But I didn't challenge her about why God lets me feel guilty. I'm being rude enough as it is, asking this woman who's been through hell personal questions like I'm Oprah. She invokes the story of Job. God asked him, "Who are you to question me? Your thoughts are not my thoughts. Your ways are not my ways." To further her point, Debbie mentions a friend of hers whose son has deadly allergies. Each day, her friend sends him to school with a hope and a prayer. She told me that she has to learn to release him every day. We all have to do that. Release them. Pray. They say time heals all wounds. It doesn't, but the Lord heals all pain if you give him time. I don't love what happened, but it did. It gets better. You go on. You feel like yourself again. Eventually. Before I wrapped up, I asked Debbie one final question I was burning to know. Do you think the sculpture looks like Sam? She surprises me with laughter. No! I mean, it favors her, but it's cold. It's static. To see Sam was to see her moving. If one could hear a smile, I do in Debbie's voice. Me and my mother-in-law were watching somebody on one of those dance shows on television. Mom pointed to the TV and said, "That's Sam." Now Debbie belts out a laugh from deep inside her throat. She used to do this dance where she moved her little hips and we would yell, "Shake what your mama gave you." She was really something. When I hung up the phone, I reflected on Sam's rock for a long time and realized the monument is like a story quilt, a functional work of art pieced together by people who loved Sammy McDonald and wanted to tell her story in their own ways. It doesn't matter that they pieced Sam rocks together imperfectly. It works, at least for them. And isn't that enough? After I talk with Debbie ends, I think that's what the McDonald's hoped for, as much as they wanted people to come to their faith. The fact is, whether they felt guilt as substantial as that monument or none at all, what remains as solid as the bronze and granite used to craft the work is this: Sam's Rock tells a beautiful story of faith in the face of unspeakable loss. To the McDonald's and many others, that story means everything. And as for me, now that I know the whole story, I'm loving it. Find something that wasn't dark and twisty, because for 2 years I've been writing dark and twisty things. And then I go through my stuff and I go, I don't have anything that's not dark and twisty. To my horror, I realize I am a dark and twisty person. That's okay. But not Eugenia. Come on up, Miss Positive Power.
Hey everybody, I am not the techno person, so I have paper.
Do you want the mic in this?
Let me see, sir. Can you hear me? That's pretty
Yeah.
good, isn't it? No, I'll go with it. I'm gonna set the light here because for some reason I feel like I'm going to be reading several poems and an excerpt from a magazine article that I submitted. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. Some of you have heard this one before, but hopefully it'll be a different outcome than the time you heard it last. This one is entitled Morning Dew. The sun sets on another mass shooting. The rain washed the blood away. No water can erase the pain. Now we lay down photos, candles, and flowers. Your memories, they help us keep. We gather together, hand in hand, on bended knee across the land. There's a chill in the air. The sun disappears. Darkness falls silent, flowing like tar covering the light. We now lay down, too sad to sleep. Our slumber, a waterbed of tears. The sun rises early today. It brings the dawn of possibilities. It brings a brand new day. The grass, the trees, the flowers glisten. The sun's golden rays shine down on them, drying their tears, the morning dew that covers them. This one is called View from a Virus, and it originally appeared in the Kentucky Monthly Magazine July 2020 issue. And this was during the pandemic, so some people think the pandemic's over, some people, they don't care. So just go back, think back with me on this one. Yeah, sure, I'm a bad mother, no cure. I'm just a little virus who's turned the world upside down in as little as a few months. But what have I really done? I've made some people sick. I've caused some to pass away. And I'm not proud of that. And for that, I'm sorry. But I've also caused some positive ripples from me through your homes, neighborhoods, countries, and the world. Ripples like helping people, like watering the seeds of creativity that once lie dormant in the souls of so many. Ripples like forcing you, society, to jump out of your boxes that you were so content with living in. It was I, COVID-19, that prodded you with a hot poker, making you get out of your comfort zone. But there are many other viruses you human beings have been content to live rampant through your neighborhood, cities, country, and world. Viruses like hatred, intolerance, gun violence, divisions based on race, religion, sexuality, socioeconomics, and politics. You, society, you were okay with things hurting and killing as long as the victims didn't look like you, didn't dress like you, didn't believe like you, or didn't vote like you. Yeah, those viruses were okay because they didn't touch you or your family or your friends or your pocketbook. But COVID-19, I can't see race, sexuality, party lines, or class. When you, society, could have done something about those viruses that plagued your neighborhood, cities, country, and world, you did nothing. Society, you just stood there and watched. You watched as citizens were abused and gunned down in the streets. You watched as places of worship were burned, bombed, and shot up. You watched as women doing the same job as men were paid less. You watched as teachers were turned into babysitters, psychologists, and miracle workers. You watched as those who looked and believed differently became victims of hate crimes. You watched while children were stripped from the loving arms of their parents, locked in cages, scared and alone. Society watched as those in high-powered positions took advantage of those they were entrusted to protect. Watched as politicians elected to be the voice of the people, for the people, were struck with amnesia. Only to seek personal gain, glory, and popularity while in office. You watched as millions were denied health care or higher education because they couldn't pay. Watched as the pharmaceutical companies held medication for ransom for those who needed it to live. You watched while thousands starved to death in one of the wealthiest nations. These viruses we have the ability to defeat, yet we do nothing. This one, I passed out a poem, and it's called A Man-Child. And a lot of times when I tell people that, some people chuckle and laugh because I think they have a some kind of a thought when they hear the word man-child. But that's not what I mean when I say man-child. To me, man-child is a seed of a man. It's a little boy who is a man-child. It's not a negative thing. So I wrote this as an explanation. It's called A Man-Child is a Seed of a Man-Child Explained. A man-child is a seed of a man. He's a blank slate. He's a pure mind. He's an untainted soul. Will he be allowed to grow old? He's free to be whatever he can be. He's free to achieve whatever he dreams. He's free to do whatever he wants and go wherever he wants to go. He is ultimately free to be a man he's destined to be. He is a little boy who is a seed of a man. He is a blank slate. He is a pure mind, and he is an untainted soul. But will he be allowed to grow old? Sow seeds of hope. Water him with love. Shower him with positive power. Support him with encouragement. Empower him with words. Treat him with respect. Extend to him equal justice. So he will grow strong and flourish in the world. Yes, he will be allowed to grow old. If we, society, pull the weeds that surround him, this little boy who is a seed of a man. We must stop the weeds from choking the life out of him. The weeds of inequality, just because he's a black man. The weeds of fear, just because he's a black man. the weeds of hate just because he's a black man, the weeds of injustice just because he's a black man, the weeds of death just because he's a black man. Society, pull the weeds, so we all grow old together. That was for the men. This is for you women. Girl power. I am women rising. I am women rising from the things that once had me tethered to the ground. I am women rising from the things that once stopped me from living life to the fullest potential. I am women rising like the phoenix from the ash left behind by desires burned out. I am women rising, now able to smile through the tears of past pain, physical, emotional, and spiritual. I am women rising, once silenced by a voice lost, now able to shout loud and proud, never to be silenced ever again. I am women rising out of the darkness into the light. I am women rising, walking from sleepless, endless night to the bright sunshine. I am women rising, welcoming the dawn of a brand new day. The day when women will not be judged by how they look on the outside, but be valued for what they are on the inside. The day when they no longer have to fear being women in a world of men. The day when women will be treasured by their true worth. I am women rising, never again tethered to the ground. I am women rising, living life to its full potential. I am women rising, rekindling the flames of the desires of my heart. I am women rising, see my heart, see my mind, and see my spirit. I am women rising, I will never be silenced. I shout it loud, I shout it proud. I am women rising, I am women rising, I am women rising. So this is just going to take you, just kind of relax and hopefully chill you out. This is entitled White Barn. In an open field I stand, barefoot at the bottom of a Kentucky rolling hill. Cool blades of thick green grass cushion every step. A velveteen carpet stretching as far as I can see, melting into the distant horizon. Not a cloud in the sky. Its colors, perfect blends of blue. Sky, baby, sapphire, iceberg, and cerulean. With each climbing step, I get closer and closer to the sky. Higher and higher, my breath is taken away. Droplets of perspiration flow down my back and drip from my chin. A passing breeze cools my skin. I march on, a summit to conquer. I will not be defeated. A few more steps. On top of the world, I stretch out my arms and twirl, twirl, twirl. There is no one here but me. I am free. I look up, and what do I see? Not a cloud in the sky. Its color, perfect blends of blue. Sky, baby, sapphire, iceberg, and cerulean. I look down. What do I see? An open field below. Cool blades of thick green grass cushion my every step. A velveteen carpet stretching as far as the eye can see, melting into the distant horizon. Seated at the bottom of this Kentucky rolling hill, an isolated, beautiful white barn. Thank you.
Eugenia brought that heat. wrong, she is a little bit dark and twisted. Let's take about 5, stand up, stretch a little bit, and we'll get ready for the beautiful, the fabulous, the amazing Anonimuss Rose. And the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative are really excited to bring you the amazing Anonimuss Rose. They make music for the people, period. A neo-soul flower is blooming in the heart of Kentucky. At 29 and ready for the world, Anonimuss Rose brings a 90s vibe with a futuristic twist that appeals to the present. Her story begins planted in the center of the bluegrass state, awaiting her time to bloom. After enough sunlight and water, she sang her first song at the impressionable age of 3 in a single-parent home to the grand audience of her mother, the one unwavering supporter she has ever known. After battling depression, homelessness, and surviving a suicide attempt, Anonimuss found solitude and peace in song. Just as things began to look like her big break was approaching, the COVID-19 pandemic hit and forced cancellation of her debut 11-city tour. Heartbroken, yet still determined, she used the time to discover herself and her sound, which led to Lincoln Lounge, her forthcoming album, which I hope we will all be purchasing. Shortly after the release of her album, she set off on her first tour, This Is Anonimuss, November of 2021, to expand her career and her presence. Now in 2023, we prepare for her second coming album of the trilogy Lincoln Lounge 2, The Juliet, is set to release this year. Everybody give a big warm welcome to Anonimuss.
Peace and love. How are you guys? Just a little bit about myself. I am Anonimuss Rose. I am born and raised here in Lexington, Kentucky. Something that is very special about myself as well. I be nervous. I be nervous, y'all. So you gotta bear with me. But I'm here to share a few selections. The theme is Say It Loud, I'm Black and I am proud. Woo! And this project, Lincoln Lounge Part 2, I brought you songs off of this project. It's more diving into the poetry of me, but with the melody behind it, sound, instruments, and it all comes together to provide a cadence of healing. And 1, I'm Black. 2, I'm a woman. And not to over-exaggerate, everybody's got problems, but baby, we got problems. And to take out the time to really dive into yourself and discover who you are is so important. So I literally spent a whole year in the house writing, building, writing, crying, building, screaming, rhyming, like getting upset and then calming down and smiling. And it came to this beautiful, composed mess. That's what I call it. It's a beautiful mess. But it's me, and you guys will hear from me 2 more times throughout the night, so this is just one of them. And this is called Ruby. Ruby was inspired by Miss Ruby Bridges. If everybody knows that Ruby Bridges was the first Black girl to go to an integrated school, right? And she's still living today, right? So that lets us know that we're not too far removed from history and what we're dealing with, all right? My grandmother's still alive too. And it really pushed me, and I saw myself in her. Because a lot of the times in Kentucky, you'll find yourself sometimes being the only Ruby in the room.
Right.
And you gotta stand tall and proud and confident in what that is and who that is. So this, guys, is Ruby.
How hard you play?
Black girl, you don't belong here, they said. This is a man's world, yeah. That's all that I hear. I gave my Barbie doll a pretty fancy car and a new career. How you doing, kid? Mama said that I could be anything, and true or not, I believed her. Yes, ma'am, I said, she kissed me on my head and told me I was a seer. I was made for more than doing things for boys. What kind of basic girl do you take me for? I'm a ruby, yeah, I'm a ruby. Said I can walk alone if you're too scared to go. I can hold my own, I don't fear no more. I just gotta be strong and be strong, hold on. Said I can walk alone if you're too scared to go. I can hold my own, I don't fear no more. I just gotta be strong and hold on. And I wanna shine like a ruby. It's my time, baby, it's my turn. And yes, I'm gonna shine like a ruby. Free my mind every day I learn. I'ma walk with pride like a ruby. And I'm pilot deep inside. Yes, I'm gonna shine like a ruby. Yes, I'm ruby, I'm ruby. Okay, listen. I represent cause it matters to little girls who will have to climb the corporate ladder. In a world where feminine blackness is unattractive, cloning manufactured, they call it a movement but don't see us going backwards. A bunch of prima donnas, but I be Black Madonna. With Christ in my name, I'm not the same old Rihanna. My disclaimer, let me know if that's gonna be a problem, cause I will never stay where I'm a secondary option. So see, I know my value, so I don't need appraisal. We all in the matrix till we unplugging the cables, breaking all the barriers and challenging the labels. This is when evolution meets elevation. Let's put it on the table. The same hand they said not to bite is the one that rocks the cradle. Lord save them. We shouldn't have to fight to be treated as we were created. I'm just saying. And I'm gonna shine like a ruby. It's my time, baby, yeah. It's my turn. And yes, I'm gonna shine like a ruby. Free my mind every day. And a pilot deep inside. Yes, I'm gonna shine. Yes, I'm ruby. Yes, I'm ruby. Thank you.
Every time she opened her mouth, a black angel got its wings. Our next reader is the fabulous Lisa Brown. Lisa is a consultant at the Lextropolis and contributing writer at Business Lexington. She is dedicated to covering issues pertinent to the Black community, systemic and institutional racism, workplace bias and trauma, racial profiling, and educational, health, and economical disparities. Brown is also a playwright that focuses on real-life issues that individuals grapple with, including broken relationships, terminal illnesses, and loss of hope. Let's hear it for Lisa.
going to be sitting tonight. I'm just recovering from surgery, and I've had like several different accidents, and so I'm feeling a little bit dizzy. And so I'm going to be sharing with you tonight 2 different pieces. The first is an excerpt from my upcoming book titled Living Life Full Throttle. It's a faith-based book, and I use my own personal stories to teach people how to navigate through life's rocky terrains. And I am a person of faith, and I remember one night just sitting in the bed talking to God and telling God, no matter what obstacles I face in life, God, I'm just going to go full throttle. And I started attaching that to my Facebook post, and it just became its own little story. And I had no idea when I started writing my book that God was going to take me at my word when I said that I would keep pushing no matter what obstacles I face. In the last couple of years, I buried both of my parents. I lost my job. I've been in 4 car accidents. I suffered 2, and I forget my words, 2 TBIs. I've fallen into a manhole. I've had all of these different accidents that have happened. I had 6 different surgeries in the last few years. And I remember one particular surgery that before they were able to operate, the doctor had told me, he was like, there's a possibility that you're going to die. And I just turned my head to the wall, and I told God, I said, I can't die, God. I said, because you told me to write this book. And so with everything that I faced in my life, I learned how to push through the pain and find purpose. And so with my book, I want to encourage people that you can still have joy no matter what you go through. And I like to think that I don't look like everything that I've been through. And sometimes, I tell God, I was like, God, I don't want to have to go through anymore. I don't want to have to, go through the pain, the trauma. But no matter what, he's made himself to be faithful. So I'm going to be reading an excerpt from that, from one of the chapters in my book. And then I'm going to be sharing a second piece with you that's not included in my manuscript, but I recently wrote this piece while taking a class at the Carnegie Center for BIPOC women. So the first thing that I'm going to be reading to you is called Hush That Noise, and I will explain the title of this particular chapter after I finish. The incessant ringing of the telephone interrupted me as I packed for a business trip to the ATL. Glancing at the caller ID, I answered my cell phone. She's gone, Lisa. I tried to make sense of what my brother said. Sitting on the floor, I stared blankly at the open suitcase resting at my feet. My neatly folded clothes were within arm's reach on the black antique gold-striped couch, but I no longer had the strength or the desire to pack. I'm not sure how long I sat in that demented silence, wrestling with his stinging words. Perhaps 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 8, who knows? Gripping the phone until the blood dripped from my fingers, I asked, "Do you mean she's dead?" "Yes," he replied. "We're all at the house." "Okay," I responded. Truthfully, I was not okay. Far from it. Although she had been sick for more than a year, I still wanted to believe she wasn't going to die. I had fervently prayed. I stood by her bed levelly, brushing my fingers against the salt and pepper hair she always wore, tucked neatly in a bun secured with bobby pins. She stretched her hand toward me, and I gingerly intertwined my fingers with their French manicure tips. With her wrinkled hand, aged by sunspots and broken lines, moving closely to her ear, I gently whispered, perhaps I thought my love was somehow going to magically keep her alive. I knew she loved me just as fiercely as I loved her because she always referred to me as my girl. She called me that so often, I always wondered if she really knew what my name was. The mere mention of those 2 words, my girl, conjured memories of David Ruffin, the lead singer of the Temptations, performing on stage with perfectly coiffed hair. He masterfully belted out his love for his girl. I am and will always be her girl. Death will not rob me of that beloved title. Nothing prepared me for this moment. It didn't matter that she had been ill for an extended period of time. I still wasn't ready to say goodbye. I hung up the phone and headed to her house. How many times had I driven to 559 Chestnut Street? On that night, I don't remember driving past the numerous restaurants with their brightly illuminated signage that lined the streets. I don't remember the people who were oblivious that the earth suddenly stopped to spin on its axis while they leisurely milled around Triangle Park looking at the fountains. I don't remember parking in front of her house with this white vinyl siding and chocolate brown shutters. I don't remember walking in the front door astonished that my legs were able to bear the enormous weight that I was forced to carry. I only recall the two of us alone in her bedroom. Sitting in the chair across from her bed, I glanced at her as I'd done so many times before. She looked like she was sleeping, but something was remarkably different. Staring at her lifeless body, I tearfully realized that indeed she was gone. My grandmother was dead. My college mentor told me everyone needs someone beside them as they make their transition from this side of Jordan to where their ancestors rest from their labors in perpetual peace. My brother was in the room with our mother, aunts, and uncle when grandmother died. They heard her take her last breath, but I had been holding my breath for 15 months, praying she'd get better, cursing Satan in the name of Jesus, rebuking the fear that paralyzed me every time her health deteriorated. Now I was left to wonder why my faith failed to sustain her. And I titled that piece, Hush That Noise, because my grandmother was a woman of impeccable faith. And anytime we would be at a funeral and she saw someone behaving in a manner in which she considered undignified or becoming too emotional, she would walk up to that person and put her finger on their lip and say, hush that noise, there ain't no problem that God can't dissolve. She didn't say resolve. And I remember the day that she had died and we were having the public visitation and we had gone to the funeral home to view her remains before her body being transported to the church. And I held my composure, but then when I got home and I was trying to get dressed for the wake, and I kept going between the bathroom and the bedroom, and I just fall out on the bed, and I would just scream, and I just cry uncontrollably. And all of a sudden, I heard her silent voice, sweet voice saying, hush that noise, ain't no problem that God can't dissolve. So even in the midst of the grief, I'm still able to celebrate my grandmother. Is titled, I Am My Mother's Legacy, and I dedicate this to every little black and brown girl and woman who's ever felt that she's not enough. She plowed through the cornfield while powerfully swinging her arms as if they were sickles used to forge a path through the 6 feet towering corn stalks. Wearing a straw hat peppered with salmon and mango chutney colored roses and olive green foliage that failed to hide the flecks of ice in her warm brown eyes. My spirit heavily resonated with Sophia when she fired playing to Miss Seeley. All my life I had to fight. On a Sunday morning in January 1968 that knew no warmth, my mother birthed me through trauma. As I attempted to enter a world marked with racial turbulence and unrest, the devil singled me out and determined that I should die. I ain't talking about some fictitious character with pointy horns that wears a red cape, carries a pitchfork, and appears upon the illustrated pages of children's books. No, this hostile opponent is known as the prince of the power of the air. He is demonic and masterfully yields his power to them proud boys, those sons of disobedience, abomination, and wrath. Satan wanted me dead on arrival, but I had a mama whose prayers infiltrated heaven, causing black Jesus to rise from his throne, which is encircled by a rainbow of promise that shines like a priceless, translucent emerald. He blew smoke from his wide nostrils, and the one who is, who always was, and was still to come, declared that I should live and not die. The adversary became enraged and erected a blockade within my mother's birth canal and deemed the area impossible. But I intuitively knew that the woman whose protective wound that had temporarily provided me shelter for the last 9 months was a warrior. I, as her legacy, possessed a strong will to fight and not surrender to the schemes of the devil. 74 days before they brutally murdered Martin Luther King of nonviolence, I was forcibly removed from my mama's secure natal cavity with 4 steps, which left me with my first set of battle scars. But Lord God, here I am. Jesus, with his woolly, texturized hair and skin of bronze, gifted me with words and resources to fight against the injustices of today's political regime, religious zealots, and the Karens and Kens who daily feast on white privilege while sipping on the aged blood of my ancestors who built this country. The same Jesus lifted his cornucopia that richly houses the fruit of the Spirit, and he generously poured joy and peace within my weary soul and instructed me to wisely choose what battles I fight because he realizes my body, spirit, and mind needs rest. He taught me how to recruit soldiers who would enlist in this never-ending fight that we call life so that I might breathe, wellness. Sophia, I'm sorry you had to fight all your life. I apologize you sat in that jail till you near rotting to death. Dressed in fatigues, clothed with brilliance, defiance, and grit, my sisters and I are warring against our oppressors who attempt to annihilate and objectify us mind, body, and soul. We unapologetically decree no more senseless killings of our fathers, husbands, and sons, no more raping our bodies and culture, no more. For we are the women of valor, amen, and so be it. Battle scars occurred when they took me out with forceps causing facial paralysis, and I never felt very comfortable because of that. But I learned that that's my battle scar. That's not something that I have to be ashamed of. The devil wanted me dead before my mother even gave birth to me. But the Word of God teaches us that before He even formed us in our mother's womb, that He had purpose for our lives. And so I refuse to allow anything that I've gone through to cause me not to live out that purpose. And so I just want to thank you for sharing with me.
All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my knees. I had to fight my broken tailbone. I had to fight this head wrap. Let me tell you, it is not easy to show up when your body is broken, when your heart is broken. But she's here. And she brought it. The next bit of sunshine is just one of my favorite people. Beautiful Venecia Proctor. She enjoys reading and writing stories that analyze or re-envision society. From fall to spring, she teaches creative writing to young writers in the Fayette County School District. She's currently working on a novel that explores Black girl womanhood. Let's hear it for Venecia.
Hi. So I'm so excited to share this story with you guys. This is the first time that I've come up and shared something from my work, so I'm really excited about that. The excerpts that I'm going to be sharing are from the novel that I've been working on for the past 3 years, and it's going to spend time with two of the main characters who just really need each other to survive. So it starts off, Mr. Yuri was old, slightly overweight, and single. His disinterest in anything other than money and the things that money could afford made him no more than tolerated by those in the town. He did not grow his money, but maintained in a way that ensured comfort for himself and himself alone. The first thing Mr. Yuri owned was a gas station. As years went by, he could not be bothered to schedule and pay for the regular tank inspections. He told himself he would get one done every other year, which turned into every several years, which turned into never, because he'd given up on the chore altogether. When Mr. Yuri realized that candy earned more coin at less cost and commitment, he scrawled the words "no gas" on the front, back, and side of every pump and spent a week restocking his shelves. Several baskets the size of soup pots were filled with yellow lemon drops, blood red Twizzler bites, green gummies, blue dum-dums, orange rock candy, salt taffy, and rainbow lollies. The baskets leaned against the window, causing unfortunate children without a weekly allowance to press their slick foreheads against the glass and pray for sugar rain. Lucky ones sat directly in front of the store, hands cupped full of candy, happily letting the sugar coat their fingers. Lucky or not, children gathered atop those sleepy gas tanks, unaware of the rusty liquid that oozed from the metal containers. Maybe they would catch the musty scent or taste the iron water if their tongues weren't glued to the stick. Some say the story began with a woman, a nasty woman, visually and morally. Skin so black it resembled all the emptiness of a starless night, and eyes just as dark and dull. Usul was her name, and she had her mind set on mischief from the moment she entered the corner store. A group of girls were sure they saw her, stuffing her pockets with things she could not afford. Soda, chips, candy bars. The town was small. They knew this girl, but they said they feared her. As one of the girls broke out in a high-pitched scream for Mr. Yeary, the other three joined in unison. Mr. Yeary, who'd been asleep, rose and followed the screams. He found 3 pale fingers all pointing in the same direction. When his eyes fell upon Usul, he did not see a child. He only saw darkness. They say he provided a warning. They say she ignored his warning. Pockets bulging, caramels clutched in her moist fists. They say she was dangerous, consumed by anger. They say they were all careful to never say she was a child. When Usul did not release her clenched fist, did not even turn to acknowledge the store clerk, he reached for her arm. They say she bit him before his fingers could even catch a grip, and Mr. Yeary smacked her face with the violence of a full-grown man. When Usul's body fell to the floor, they say she wore a bloody smile. Mr. Yeary let out a full-throat yell for his nephew in the back. They say the woman jumped to her feet and bolted out the door. All of the caramels melted into one sticky glob. It must be noted that the woman in this story was not truly a woman, but a 10-year-old girl. Everyone knows, but no one will say what came after the corner store. To say it would put words to the evil acts of their hands, breaking the spell that allowed for them to believe that they were blameless. The delusion that washed their hands of all that allowed for a 10-year-old girl to be murdered over a collection of sugar that amounted to 75 cents. A poisoned people, a dangerous people, a people who populated an entire town, beaming with the belief that this place was their own, that their power was authentic, but their power was of their own creation, and their power possessed limits. The earth's core is no place for living things. Too much time and it will rip her soul from its essence. Usul's soul went straight to the earth's core for 4 minutes and 56 seconds. Its rejection allowed for her to be romanced back to life. And when she rose, her skin glistening a deep, rich brown, brown like the blood of the earth, brown like every color mixed into one, she had already been beautiful, but her ascension, clay-like soil shedding like worn skin, made her radiant. Mud and grass dusted her naked body, but she did not feel dirty. The earth lived in her hair, beneath her nails, tucked behind her ears. She was no longer a 10-year-old girl, but an ageless woman. She licked her lips and shivered at the taste. It was as moist and bitter as coffee beans. Delicious, she thought, but aren't I supposed to be dead? The day Usul rose from the earth, she was not grateful. She glowed like the encore to a show no one knew to attend. There was no stone to mark her grave, no flowers to mourn her death. There were only gaps in her memory, a phantom feeling of heartbreak. She tried to access the particular moment when she died, but her mind jumped forward to the present, the not dead. She submerged her fingers beneath the warm soil from which she came, closed her eyes, and breathed. Memory struck quick and sharp. Images of masked figures assaulted her, weapons pointed at her face. She recalled countless deaths of unnatural causes. These did not feel like her memories, but the collective memories of a people, her people in this world. A worn-out fear clutched her bare skin. To live again felt like a nasty joke. There was no love in her heart for the people of this world. She picked up a branch and rolled it between her fingers. My time is up, she thought. She snapped the branch and twisted the strongest strand. It held like rubber taffy, refusing to break. Just one firm thrust, she told herself. Maybe you've got this in you. She took a deep breath. Before she could even so much as quiver, the cottonwoods came into heightened focus and demanded her attention. Their leaves outstretched like splayed fingers, green with woolly white rings. A cool liquid rushed from beneath her skin, which required Usul to steady herself. She dropped the branch and concentrated on the energy that pulled from the ground and rushed through her body. It began as an angry heat that cooled into a menthol sensation. Her skin tightened around her bones. When it released, a thin layer of liquefied gold oozed from her pores and coated her skin. This was magic, glorious magic. A curiosity rose within her. She got the sense that this magic would protect her, silence her fears. She felt hopeful, and in light of this, she began to dig. And this is a second excerpt, and this is a little bit further, and this is a distant relative of Usul. Survival was a high-pitched bird whistle dancing through the trees. Singular and collective, one call prompted a choir of voices ranging in sound and span that nourished the entire wood. Though flightless, Bernie felt like she could soar while immersed in their song. Even though the skin beneath her backpack straps grew moist and sticky, she felt like she'd been given wings. Each step distanced her from school and carried her closer to home. She felt free enough to tilt her head back, stretch out her arms, and be seen. Arms outstretched and smiling, she took off into a full sprint, knees and elbows knocking because home wasn't far. Once she broke through a network of odd and ancient trees, it was just 5 houses and a gas station away. She closed her eyes and built up speed. In her mind, she was flying. Sweet low notes soared from her lips and echoed through the trees. The worst part of the day was behind her, and it was time to begin her birthday eve rituals. She pictured her grandmother striking a match to birth a flame. It was ritual to sage the house. With her eyes closed, she would bless each object with a 2-second prayer. The smoke was always a heavy black as it swung in smooth circles. And at the end, Grandma would clear her throat and lick the tips of her fingers before suffocating the flame. The flame died with a crack and a hiss in response. The gentle burn of the sun on her shoulders brought Bernie back to reality. She was just past the woods and in front of Davy and Arthur Wilson's house, a burgundy split level lined with moss and vines. The Wilson boys were known for making a game of torture. Some said it was because their mom beat on their father. Others said it was nothing more than boys being boys. Bernie held her breath and fixed her eyes on the road ahead. Meanwhile, Davy and Arthur Wilson leapt from behind their mother's red Challenger, gripping a birch switch in both hands. Davy, the older of the two, cocked his head back and let out a triumphant yell. Arthur joined in, finishing his off with a wide, toothy grin. Bernie's eyes grew in size. 2 days ago it was rocks, today it was sticks. She knew to run before Davy was through, but the boys, free from their restrictive school clothes, ran in short, quick strides. Playing a game of predator and prey, Davy toyed with Bernie, extending his arm and snatching the top handle of her backpack. Catch and release, catch and release. Each jerk burned stripes down her neck until she tumbled forward. We got you, Arthur screamed. Shut up, dork. Davy lifted his switch and struck his brother in the hip. Arthur's eyes lit up like blood-red diamonds. Lightning struck down his thigh. He shoved his hands down his pants and wailed like a newborn before taking off into a clumsy waddle. Davy ignored his brother's whines and set his gaze on Bernie. He bent down and picked up Arthur's twigs, combining them with his own. A devilish smile spread across his face and an unforgiving hate pulsed beneath his skin. Bernie slowly lifted her hands, and with tears in her eyes, she forced herself to curve her lips into the shape of survival. Do you like getting whipped? Is that why you're smiling? He taunted. Bernie's nose grew hot and prickly. Tears lined her cheeks, but her lips were still pulled outward into the shape of a smile. Oh, I'll wipe that smile off your face. Davy rolled the branches between his fingers as his eyes scanned Bernie's body. Bernie was only 4 houses away from her own. If she ditched her backpack and didn't look back, there was at least a chance she would make it. Even if he caught her, she'd be closer than she was. Maybe someone would see. Maybe someone would help. She gave herself to the count of 3. 1, 2. Bare feet pounded against the concrete. A woman dressed in yellow came running out of her house, pulling Arthur by his shirt collar. She looked with disgust from Arthur to Davy. Arthur Joseph Wilson III, get in that house. Her eyes switched over to Bernie and narrowed in what she thought was a smile. You better wipe that grin off your face, little girl. Bernie lowered the corners of her lips and forced her eyes shut. With all of her energy, she wished herself away. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in the middle of the road, alone.
Black girl magic. Black girl magic. Thank you. I have so much hope when I hear young Black writers like Venecia. They are going to be our Toni Morrisons, and our Alice Walkers, and our Ntozake Shange's.
Yeah.
That was magical. I want to thank my friends at the Lexington Writers' Room. This particular Say It Loud is a collaboration with the LWR. Did I put those right? I don't know. Lexington Writers' Room. And We came to be involved at the KBWC with the Lexington Writers Room. I had to wonder if I said KBWC right. The reason that we got involved is we had our first, I started during the pandemic, and we had our first KBWC meet and greet that was virtual. And this beautiful woman with mermaid hair was in the crowd of black faces. And I thought, I don't know who that is, but I love her. She did mention about their work at the Lexington Writers Room, giving dedicated space to writers to come in. You don't want to work at home. Some of the benefits is, yes, you have this wonderful dedicated space. They got snacks, all kinds of snacks. And every photo, author photo here, was courtesy of the members. It was a gift to the members of the Lexington Writers Room. So, fabulous, fabulous. Each one of us who read tonight are proud members of the Lexington Writers Room. Thank you. Tom has already thanked our sponsors, and once again, I would like to thank all of our sponsors. I will not remember all of you. I could barely remember my name. I also want to say something about Black suffering and Black voices. Black people were not always allowed the freedom of being able to talk about our pain and our experiences. In fact, we could be killed for such. It reminds me of the passage in Beloved when Baby Suggs gathers people to the clearing, gathered people to mourn and to laugh and to dance until it all got mixed up together. It was a space for us to be free and to have our free expression. Do not think for 1 minute that as Black people, we don't know how close we are to that experience. So it's a powerful move when Black people can share their voices. And my job is to make sure those voices are heard in the Commonwealth, in the country, in the world. So thank you, Lexington Writers Room writers. You're all amazing. So rather than giving any closing remarks, I am going to let amazing Anonimuss Rose take us on home, and we'll just leave to that vibe.
Give yourselves a round of applause for being here and supporting. All right, so let's talk about Black Girl Joy. we didn't cry, we didn't express it, we didn't get it off, so let's smile a little bit. This next song is called 621. 621 is my freedom. This is my freedom anthem, y'all, you know. It's my soft girl era. I get to be soft now, y'all. Just talk about that, like, women! Woo! We do not get that moment to just sit down and just be like, we gotta pick up the clothes, get over here, we gotta go, we gotta do this, get over there. This song is just outside of all of that. So if you want to clap your hands and stand up, you can. I'm not going to force you. I'm going to vibe up here as well. I got 2 selections for you guys, and we're going to head on out, right? All right. Here's 621. You turn it up for me. Now, mind y'all, I am a country girl still. I do live in the city, but I'm still country in my heart. Woke up feeling good today. Paid my toes and did my hair. Think the sun just looked my way. 'Cause today we're not worried about all the things that bring us down. We gon' sing, we gon' scream and shout. Everybody gon' see me smile, because I've cried and I've cried and I've died inside. But now I'm high and I'm fine and my mind is right. 621, I don't need your help. Body on smash, spirit on guard, and my mind on cash. So go ahead, smile, it's good for your health. 621, I don't need no help. Body on smash, spirit on guard, and my mind on cash. And I am more than you've ever given me credit for. Yes, I'm applauding myself, I have no need for yours. I'm a star and I'm beautiful, walking out the door. You've got the world in your hands, girl, what you waiting for? 'Cause today we're not worried about all the things that could bring us down. We gon' scream and shout. All that drama gon' let it out. Because you've cried and you've cried and you've died inside. But now you're high and you're fine, and now's the time. I don't need no help. Spirit on God, my mind okay. I don't need your help. Spirit on God, my mind okay. All right, come on, y'all. Come on, come on. Hey, hey. I think I'll hear me out. I got me till the end, 'cause I'm my own best friend. Said I don't need your help, I got myself. My spirit on God and my mind on flesh. I don't need no help. Spirit on God and my mind on cash. Come on, girl. It's all right. This last song, that was for my this last song. That was for my beautiful black girls and women. This one is for the young black men. A lot of the times we deal and carry pain and hurt and suffering and sorrow in silence. We don't talk about it. And sometimes that can become projection, right? So when we project our hurt, we project our pain. And sometimes when you're trying to fall in love with somebody and they ain't been through a lot of stuff, it's kind of hard, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna sing this beautiful song, which is a letter to the black man, and we're just gonna let it speak for itself. Is that all right? Yeah. All right, that works for me. Go ahead. This is called Her Behalf. But I apologize on her behalf. We never had nobody love you, and baby I can tell by how you act. You're so defensive, you're so dismissive. I say let's talk about it, but all you do is listen. Baby, why won't you just let me in? Don't tell me what you think about it, no. I wanna know how you feel. I know you're strong, you're my protection, I know you got it. But I can't see the scars that you need to heal. They told you not to cry, and you held all your tears. My arms open wide. It's okay, you're safe here. My dear, I don't know a woman out there hurt you, and I apologize on her behalf. You ain't never had nobody love you, so I can't when you get defensive, when you act dismissive. I say let's talk about it, but you think that I just want you to just let me in. I don't want sex, don't wanna smoke, don't wanna come through and chill. Want you to undress and de-stress and express to me how you feel. Don't want sex, don't wanna smoke, don't wanna come through and chill. Want you to undress and de-stress and express to me how you feel, baby, how you feel. Can we talk about how